do it. See, what's the sinner? Somebody who has free will to pick and choose his own sin. Can he choose not to sin? Nope, he's not free not to choose to sin. He's free to choose the type of sin he will indulge in. But the thing he cannot do is not sin. Can't choose to do that. To be free from sin. In order to be free from sin, the slave of sin must be purchased. That's exactly what God said right here. And I'll go back and come back to Philemon because I do want to touch on that. Watch. Look at this. This is how bad and wicked the human heart is. Look at how heartless this is, friends. Here is a man. He got himself into trouble through his own wickedness. He sells his own daughter. Friend, can you think of something so depraved, so low, so wicked, as to want to pay off your own debt by selling your little girl? To be what? A female slave. She shall not go out as the male slaves do. That is, go and be treated as harshly as a male slave. But she would be a house slave. And if she does not please her master, the person who she was sold to, who has betrothed her to himself, then he shall let her be redeemed. See that right there? He shall have no right to sell her to a foreign people. Why? Because she's in the master's house. Now God is limiting who she can be sold to. You see how merciful God is in this? That's slavery, right? Now God says, listen, for a female slave, you cannot treat them like a male slave. Why? Are they not just slaves? Yes, they are. They're both equal. But God, in his great mercy and goodness, knows the difference between a male and a female. No right to sell her to a foreign people, since he has dealt deceitfully with her. What do you mean? He had no intentions on keeping her. He simply wanted to sleep and mate with her. That was his only intention. That's what God means. And if he has betrothed her to his son, now get this. Look at how wicked men are. To his son, he shall deal with her according to the custom of daughters. If he takes another wife, he shall not diminish her food, her clothing, and her marriage. Why would God have to write that if people wasn't already doing it? They were doing it. That's how little they thought of women. That's how wicked the heart of man really is. And for the man who sold his daughter to know the type of man and what was going to happen to his daughter, yet he sold her anyway. That shows you the total depravity of the heart of all sinners. And if you think you are better than that, friend, you don't understand yourself. You don't understand the nature of the sinner. You and I are capable of not only doing that, but doing the most horrible, wicked thing any person could ever commit. The only thing stopping you is that you are a bit more sensitive to your conscience, where God wrote his laws. That's it. Now, he shall continue to give her all the things that she, as a wife, deserved. Now listen to this, and this is the part I want to get to. And if he does not do these things, these three for her, then she shall go out free. Listen, without paying money. And then he goes on and he starts talking about paying money for the slave and all that stuff. Now, let's go back to Philemon, so I can show you this concerning the slave and what God does, how God deals with slavery. First thing God does is he redeems you. He pays the price to get you from being a slave of sin to a slave of righteousness. Where's that in the book? You got to go to the book of Romans, where God talks about that transaction. And Peter talks about the transaction, but it's really, really defined here. Okay? Where God says right here that you and I were baptized into the the body of Christ, into his death. You were buried and you're raised with Christ. And you have what? Newness of life. You have life. You died and you're raised. For if we have been united together in the likeness of his death, that means you died, certainly we're going to have the likeness of his resurrection, that is life. Knowing that our old man, you see what happens? God, does he take the slave and just bring him over into the kingdom of righteousness? No. He takes the slave and then he kills him. He eliminates, annihilates the slave of sin. The slave of sin goes away, friend. He's crucified by God. That the body of sin, the body of sin. What in the world is the body of sin? The body of sin is not this thing right here. The body of sin is your human spirit. The real you. God says, for that particular body, what do I do? He is crucified, and then to make sure you understand, he says it is done away with. It is annihilated. Why? Because if he's stuck around, you're going to continue to be a slave to sin. That's why a believer can't be a slave to sin. Because the whole entire body where sin comes from is annihilated. And you get a new one. That's called the regeneration. That's called the new birth, a new creation.